Hey, and happy Thursday. You know, usually we do these on Monday, but we were waiting for some of these cases to come in so that we could update you on quite a few of them. And I've got a bunch. So it's too much to cover today. We'll hit next week with a few other ones. But Horry and Georgetown has been in court, and when that happens, you know, a lot of these I always tell you, it's always, I want a trial, I want a trial, I want a trial. And then it's a plea at the last minute, and that has happened quite a bit here. One that you have been following for a while, almost 5 years, but that's with 4 continuances, is Megan Jackson and Chris Dontell. So Megan Jackson went to trial. Chris Dontell, at his trial, ended up pleading guilty, and the judge held that sentence in abeyance. Of course, this is what we always refer to as the coroner case. Megan Jackson got life imprisonment without possibility of parole. So she's going to die in prison. He testified against her, and he pled to accessory after the fact of murder for dumping the body in the Little Petey River, for tying the body down and trying to conceal it in the river. And then he came in and testified. It's a love triangle that ended up in the death of Greg Rice. Here's a part that you wouldn't know, but today 2020 came in and did a story on it. So that is that's going to be probably in a month or two. You'll see it on 2020. So Chris Dontell, who had pled a while back and sentence was being withheld, he got the maximum on he got the maximum on accessory after the fact of murder, but that was 15 years. And then he got an additional 5 years to run consecutive for a total of 20 years. The 5 years was the conspiracy between him and Megan Jackson. So he's got 20 years in prison, and that wraps up that case. Of course, for years, our office will be fighting against post-conviction relief and fighting against appeals and all of that stuff. But as far as our office file, hers ended with a trial and a jury conviction. She got life imprisonment. He got 20 years. That's Chris Dontell. And one other thing to add to that, we made no recommendation. If you make a recommendation and then use someone as a witness, then of course the defense attorneys are going to say you were promised this or that. Chris Dontell was never promised anything. He was able to plead guilty at the beginning of his trial, and we did not go forward on the murder charges and agreed to hold the sentencing in abeyance until the judge heard all of the facts. So that's the only thing, and he got 20 years. This is a brutal case, and this is, of course, I think what makes it particularly tough is this is a whole family affair. Samantha Watts, 42, of Green Sea, and her son, who is now 18, he was 15 at the time, killed a young man his name was Adam, but they called him Corey Souls. What happened is it became kind of jumbled, but several of Samantha's kids jumped in and beat him up. It was over him owing money for drugs. They beat him up, and after he was beaten, I think his leg was broken, he was in a wheelchair. And later on, a lot of it was caught on video, but they wheeled the wheelchair into a shed, and Peyton Watts used a pipe to beat Corey Souls to death. Then they went and dumped that body in the Petey River, Little Petey, and her trial was to start Monday. I want a trial. She pled guilty and was sentenced to 45 years imprisonment. That's day for day. She is 42. If she makes it out, she will be 87 when she gets out of jail. Peyton Watts got 35 years, so he got a little bit less than her. I think that was due to his age, being 15 when it happened, a juvenile. We made a recommendation that the judge not give him over 40 years. There was no recommendation with Samantha Watts. She could have got up to life imprisonment. She got 45 years. Peyton Watts got 35 years. And there were Amber Watts, which was another daughter. She had nothing to do with the murder, but she pled guilty to accessory after the fact by helping get rid of the body. And she was given a Youthful Offender Act, which carries up to 6 years. And she pled under assault and battery first degree. She was given time served. I don't know how many days she actually served before this. There was another young man that Jonathan Watts, one of the children, he's the one that pled to the assault and battery first degree. He got time served under Youthful Offender Act. This had nothing to do with the murder. He was fighting Corey before Corey was killed. So there was 2 fights. Jonathan was involved in the first one, had nothing to do with the second one. Amber Watts, she pled to accessory after the fact, helping to dump the body, and she was given Youthful Offender Act with probation. So both of that family, 4 of those family members have already pled and been sentenced. There's a couple of other charges out there that I think 3 that have yet to be resolved. One's an accessory after the fact of a person that rode with Amber, and 2 of them are involved in the fight, the initial fight. So, but for the most part, that mother and son team, Samantha and Peyton, got 80 years for the murder of Corey Soules. And that is almost over. There's a few other people. Some helped in the case, some didn't. We'll see where that goes, but those should work out in the near future. In Georgetown, this was a trial. John Allen Bryant, 23 years old, of Georgetown. We tried it as a murder. It was 2 people mad at each other, shooting at each other. John Bryant ended up shooting and killing a young man in Georgetown. Dylan Bagnall and George DeBusk prosecuted it for the state, and the jury came back with the lesser included charge of voluntary manslaughter. In other words, there was a heat of passion, so it's lower, but we tried it as a murder. The jury convicted him of voluntary manslaughter. He received 25 years. There was, again, shooting going on back and forth, and John Bryant ended up being convicted of his part in that voluntary manslaughter and use of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. 25 years. That was in Georgetown. Now, another case that we had is a man named Ray Harden, 61 years old, of Conway. He pled guilty to criminal sexual conduct in the 3rd degree. Criminal sexual conduct, in those degrees, there's 2 different statutes that sound a lot the same. This is what you and I would commonly refer to as statutory rape, or under one, it's that the person is too young to have consented. That's what he ended up pleading guilty to. It deals with the age. So if a child is less than 11 years old, that is criminal sexual conduct in the first degree. A 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old. If the child is 11 but less than 14, it's criminal sexual conduct in the second degree. And finally, if the child is 14 but not older than 16, it's criminal sexual conduct in the third degree. Statutory rape, third degree. That's probably easier understood. He received 15 years in prison for that. That was the maximum penalty for criminal sexual conduct. And when he does get out of prison, he will be required to register as a sex offender and wear an ankle monitor for the rest of his life. He's 61, 15 years will put him into his mid-70s. So great job by George Henry Martin for the criminal sexual conduct conviction and a 15-year sentence there. And we've reported that on our Facebook page. Of course, you've seen that one. And finally, right as George and Dylan were getting ready to start the other murder trial that I told you about, he got 25 years. Keon Spain, 22 of Georgetown, pled guilty to murder, and that was on Monday before the trial started. He was sentenced to 30 years, which is the mandatory minimum. Mr. Spain, 22 at the time of the plea, killed 37-year-old Reginald Jamar Green. And again, as we said, on a murder case, it's day for day. So you add 30 years to 2025, and Mr. Spain should be getting out somewhere around 2055. That's the updates that we have for you from this week of trial, and we'll be back with a few other ones. We've had motions and PCRs this week.